Welcome to the Brooklyn Rails Wednesday afternoon poetry reading series. We've got a terrific reading for you today, curated by Leonard Schwartz. The title of the reading is Three Languages. Leonard will be reading along with Zhang Er, Tyrone Williams, and Fatemeh Shams. I'm going to introduce the readers in just a minute. Just want to let you know to pay attention to the chat if you are coming here for the first time, as there will be information on the readers on their various endeavors and publications posted as they're reading, along with some basic information on the Brooklyn Rail. This is the 123rd, so 1, 2, 3 poetry reading done in this online weekly format, and the 752nd edition of the middle-aged social environment. And thank you all for joining us. It's actually the new social environment, but I have to keep renaming it every week because I don't say social environment over and over again without feeling like I'm driving myself up a wall or something like that. My name's Anselm Berrigan. I'm the poetry editor for The Rail, and I work on this series along with the fabulous Chloe, Eleanor, and Carolyn, who's on vacation today on Venus. And we should get this reading going. Our first reader is Fatemeh Shams. Fatemeh is an internationally acclaimed poet with 3 poetry collections: When They Broke Down the Door, Writing in the Mist, and 88. Her 3rd bilingual book of poems won the Latifa Yarshater Annual Book Award in 2017. She's had poems published in many different places, including the London Poetry Magazine, the Michigan Quarterly, Jacket 2, Pen Sound, Exile Writers Magazine, Iran's Writers Association in Exile, the Poetry Foundation, PBS, Life and Legends, and World Literature, among many others. Her poems have been translated to German, Kurdish, and Arabic. She holds a PhD in Oriental Studies from Oxford University and currently serves as the Assistant Professor of Modern Persian Literature at the University of Pennsylvania. Please welcome Fatemeh to the Rail Reading Series.
Thank you so much, Anselm, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to, since this is a bilingual reading, I'm reading the poems in Persian, and Leonard, my friend, will read them in translation. The translations are done by the first and the last poem that I will read are done by Armen Davoudian. And we're working on a new collection. Hopefully these poems will be published there. And the 2 poems in between, the translations are by Dick Davis and have been published in When They Broke Down the Door, which was my 3rd collection that came out in 2016. And at the very end, I will read a poem by the Afghan woman poet Mahbouba Ebrahimi, and the translation is done by myself and Leonard Schwartz together. Good. Leonard, would you like to read the translation first so they know what I'm actually talking about?
I'd be happy to, Fatemeh. So this is a poem entitled Hopscotch. Shoulder to shoulder with your absence, I play hopscotch on the long streets of Berlin, the chalk lines half erased by rain. One hop to where you are far away. One hop to smudged memories of Faith Kindergarten in Mashhad. Another hop and I might reach him. I might see him. I might hug my father, still 29 and about to be a father for the first time. I hop 1 square forward over the artificial borders. I hop 3 squares back to the 7-year-old girl who darts from the tip of the white poplar like the shadow of a frightened crow. And then on the landing, a brief pause, 1 foot dreaming of going back, 1 foot stuck in the present, repeating the paradox of living now in the roofless cube of memory. To play hopscotch on long streets in the elsewhere of being 38 is to walk with a pilgrim's gait in a childhood dream.
لیلی در مسیر خیابان‌های بلند شانه به شانه غیابت لیلی می‌کنم. در جدول‌های گچی نیم شسته به دست باران عصر، یک لی تا جای دور تو، یک لی تا خاطرات محو کودکستان ایمان در مشهد. لی میزنم به احتمال رسیدن، به احتمال دیدن، به احتمال در آغوش کشیدن پدر در 29 سالگی و پدر شدنش برای اولین بار. لی میزنم یک خانه به جلو، به مرزهای مصنوعی نقشه جغرافیا. لی میزنم 3 خانه به عقب، به 7 سالگی که همچون سایه کلاغی ترسان از نوک سپیدار میگریزد. و بعد کمی مکس در پاگرد، یک پا در تخیل بازگشت، یک پا در تکرار تلاطم زیستن در اکنون، در مکعب بی سقف خاطرات، در مسیر خیابان‌های بلند جای دیگر 38 سالگی. لیلی کردن یعنی هروله در رویای کودکی.
Fatemeh, do you want me to read the English first for statue?
Yeah, I think that's a better order.
Okay, very good. So this is from Shams's book, When They Broke Down the Door. It's translated by Dick Davis with Fatemeh Shams. Statue. Without my wanting it, you made me into a statue. The statue's eyes were closed to the world. I thought the world was behind a pane of glass. I thought, is this death that runs through the stone's body? I looked at you. You were a pair of living eyes behind stone. I said, no. You wanted me to give myself to you so that the world would stop. It stopped. I kissed you, a revolution erupted. People poured into the streets. They smashed the statues, and all that was left of us was white sheets, like inscriptions in cuneiform, and on them was written, the Museum of History's most untruthful storyteller.
مجسمه. بدون اینکه بخواهم مجسمه ای از من ساختی. چشمهای مجسمه به جهان بسته بود. جهان پشت پنجره بود. فکر کردم این مرگ است که در تن سنگ می دود. به تو نگاه کردم که یک جفت چشم زنده بودی در پس سنگ. گفتم نه، خواستی خودم را به تو بسپارم تا دنیا از حرکت بایستد. ایستاد. تو را بوسیدم. انقلابی در گرفت. مردم به خیابانها ریختند. مجسمه ها را شکستند. از ما فقط ملافه های سفید با ردهایی به جا ماند، مثل کتیبه هایی با حروف میخی که روی آن نوشته بود موزه دروغگوترین راوی تاریخ است.
Overcoat. I curse your gray overcoat that all at once pours the smell of your body and of wanting you, and the rare, expensive scent produced by that damned company that's bankrupt now, into my heart. I curse your gray overcoat, not you.
پالتو. لعنت به پالتو خاکستریت که همزمان بوی تن و هوس خواستن و داغ عطر نایاب و گران آن شرکت ورشکسته کذایی را با هم به دلم می‌ریزد. لعنت به پالتو خاکستریت و نه خودت.
This is a unpublished poem of Fatemeh's, and it's entitled This Is Not a Poem. So maybe it's not an unpublished poem. This is not a poem. It's a fistful of blood splattered on mute newspapers on the capital's newsstands. It's a kind of throwing, the sudden throwing of rebellious girls from the roofs of the side streets of Revolution Street. This is not a poem. It's the forced confession of an eyewitness, the deterioration of the language worn down by the chronicle of successive gunshots. A fat worm crawls through this poem and one by one swallows the termites from the faces of the words, tortured words buried under a heap of blood. This is not a poem. It's the guts of a 10-year-old who dreamt of inventing the rainbow god one day. It's a chain made of the throbbing of torn bodies and nameless graves, cut hairs, scratched cheeks. Once midnight strikes, the words will begin to assault each other. They will draw guns on each other. The past verbs will take present tenses hostage. Temples of adverbs of time and space will be shot by live bullets. This is not a poem. It's the wounded body of a 15-year-old festering from successive rapes. It's the torn-up chest of a captive laborer who laughed at his torturer until the last blow. This is not a poem. It's the life story of an executioner who brings home fresh bread every night with the blood money of rebellious poets. Before morning comes, the corpses of these words will be on the hands of these white pages, and one by one they will fall into eternal sleep in a crowded mass grave with fattened insects. This is not a poem. For weeks, words have been hung up here by their feet. The hands of metaphor and light have been chained to iron fences, and water denied to the throat of the dry tongue of this song. Alas, alas.
So this is a poem I wrote in response to the ongoing protests in Iran that erupted in September 15th after the state murder of Mahsa Amini. این شعر نیست، مشتی خون است پاشیده بر روزنامه های لال دکه های پایتخت. شکلی از پرتاب است، پرتاب شدن ناگهانی دخترکان سرکش از پشت بام‌های خیابان‌های فرعی انقلاب. این شعر نیست، اعتراف اجباری یک شاهد عینی است از حجم زوال زبان در روایت شلیک‌های پی در پی. کرم چاقی در این شعر راه می رود و موریانه ها را یکی یکی از صورت کلمه ها می بلعد. کلمه های شکنجه شده مدفون زیر تل انبوهی از خون. این شعر نیست، احشای بدن 10 ساله است که می خواست روزی خدای رنگین کمان را اختراع کند. زنجیره است از تپیدگی بدنهای پاره پاره در گورهای گمنام، گیسهای بریده، گونه‌های خراشیده. شب که از نیمه بگذرد کلمه ها بیرحمانه به هم تجاوز خواهند کرد، روی هم اسلحه خواهند کشید، افعال ماضی حالهای مضارع را به گروگان خواهند گرفت و گیجگاه قیدهای زمان و مکان را با گلوله‌های جنگی نشانه خواهند رفت. این شعر نیست، تن مجروح 15 ساله است چرکین از تجاوزهای پی در پی. سر شکافته دخترکی آوازخوان است با کلماتی له شده در گلو. سینه دریده کارگری زندانی است که تا آخرین ضربه به شکنجهگرش میخندید. این شعر نیست، داستان زندگی قاتلی است که با خونبهای شاعران سرکش هر شب نان تازه به خانه می آورد و به صبح نرسیده نعش کلمات روی دست این صفحه های سفید خواهد ماند و یکی یکی در گور دست جمعی تنگی با حشرات فربه شده به خواب ابدی فرو خواهند رفت. این شعر نیست، هفته هاست اینجا کلمه ها را از پاها آویزان کرده اند، دست های استعاره و نور را به نرده های آهنی قفل کرده اند و آب را از حنجره زبان خشک سرود. دریغ 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 این کلمات هم مثل ما دستشان خالی بود و مشتشان پر از سنگ بود و تنهاشان عریان چون لحظه زاده شدن از بطن زبان مادری. این شعر نیست که در دهان من میدود، نوسان نظم رنجی است که زخمی و برهنه در کوچه های شهر میدود و پای دکه روزنامه فروشی به زمین میافتد.
Thank you, Fatemeh. I know that you intend to conclude with a translation that we did together, but you did most of the work on. Could you, maybe you'll just say a little bit about the poet and the language.
Sure. So Mahbub Ebrahimi is one of the most I guess well-known poets of Afghanistan, and she fled Afghanistan during Taliban, the rise of the Taliban back in the 1990s, went to Iran, rose to prominence as a poet, went back to Afghanistan, and then again fled to Sweden. And I have translated a few of her poems recently, and Leonard makes sure that the poems read well in English. So this is one of the poems that she has written in response to the recent evacuation that happened last year. I read in Persian, and then you read in English.
Yeah. Okay.
بمب‌ها و تفنگ‌هایتان را، زباله‌هایتان را جمع کنید و به خانه‌هایتان برگردید، مردم آسوده جهان. چشم از آب و خاک ما بردارید، همسایه‌های نامهربان. اندوهگین و خشم‌آلود این روزها شعر نمی‌تواند شاعرانگی کند. اصلا کدام زن دست و دلش به موهایش می رود وقتی آشفته و نگران است؟ زنی که همگان ترکش کرده اند زن نیست، باروت فشرده در گلوی تفنگ است، غم سنگ شده در سینه کوه. چگونه شعر بگویم با این همه سنگ مذاب در گلویم؟ ما سزاوار جنگ نبودیم وطن جان، زن زیبای وحشی. سهم تو کاروانهایی با بار ابریشم و نور بود، انعکاس صدای رباب در کوهستان، برف سالنگ، آب گوارای هلمند و مردان نیرومند مهربان که به تو فرزندانی هدیه می‌دادند که نور عشق و دانایی در چشمهاشان می‌درخشید. من سزاوار حسرت نبودم، سزاوار آوارگی، تنهایی. باید شعرهایم عطر ارغوان و سنجد می‌داشت، صدای پای زیب و وطن، طعم شیر گوسفندان، بیشه های سبز، طعم شیر گوسفندان بیشه های سبز. سبز می شود یک روز این همه آرزو که در سینه خاک دفن کرده ایم.
A woman. This is translated from Dari or from Farsi? From
Well,
Dari.
they're essentially the same. They're just like it's from Dari, so there are some Dari words, but it's the Persian with the Dari dialect.
With the Dari dialect, okay. Take your bombs and weapons out of here. Pick up your trash and return with it to your homes. You, unruffled people of the world. Take your eyes off our water and soil, unkind neighbors. Sorrowful and enraged these days, poetry can't do its job. What woman would do her hair when anxious and restless? A woman abandoned by everyone is no longer a woman. She's a gunpowder stuck in the gun's throat. Sorrow turns into stone in the chest of the mountain. How shall I write poems with so many melting stones in my throat? My dear homeland, wild, beautiful woman, we did not deserve this war. Your share should have been caravans loaded with light silk and more silk. The echo of the harp sound in the mountains, the snow in Salang, the fragrant waters of Helmand, strong, kind men who would give you children, eyes full of light, of love, of knowledge. I did not deserve all this pity. I did not deserve all this displacement, nor this solitude. My poems once had the scent of love tree and silverberry, the sound of ankle bracelets during the autumn, the taste of sheep's milk nourished by green bushes. One day they will grow green again, all these dreams we bury in the ground. Thank you so much, Fatemeh, for your work, the poems you read, the translations you've done, and reading for us today.
Thank you so much for reading the translations.
My pleasure, Fatemeh, anytime.
Thanks, Fatemeh. And Leonard, you're up next, yeah? And Leonard Schwartz is the author of numerous books of poetry, including most recently Actualities 1, Transparent to the Stone, and Actualities 2, Two Burned Hotels. These have come out in the last couple of years from Goats and Compasses. Other books include Heavy Sublimation from Talisman and Salamander, a Bestiary from Zephyr Press with painter Simon Carr. His work in poetics, The New Babel Toward a Poetics of the Mideast Crises, is inclusive of poetry, essays, and interviews. Other titles include If and At Element, which explore the idea of an eco-poetics, as well as A Message Back and Other Furors in the Library of 7 Readings. He also edited and co-translated Benjamin Fondayne's Cinepoems and Other with New York Review of Books. Please welcome Leonard to the Rail reading.
Thank you, Anselm. Great to be here again. Thanks for asking me to come and read, Anselm, and thanks to the Brooklyn Rail for doing this great series. It's just so exciting to, I just look at the screen here. I see the poet Ashur Etwabi, who's in Libya, I think in Benghazi, Libya, but joining us from Libya. I saw Alexander Ulanov, who's in Samara, Russia. Only got one page here, but just a great Marcello Pellegrini, who's just back from Chile. So the Zoom format continues to offer the possibility of international exchange and discourse. Even as we get back to traveling a little bit, I think it's so great you're continuing with this series and making these kinds of readings possible. So I'm going to read I see Joseph Simas, who I last saw in Paris in 1986. Sorry to date you, but I'm really dating myself. But so that's really exciting to see you there. And anyhow, I hope we get a chance to renew our conversations after this. I'm going to read from Actualities 2. It's the second book in a 3-book project involving the 5 Chinese elements of water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. And so the first book, water, pertaining to water or consciousness seen through the filter of water, came out 2 years ago. Last year was Two Burned Hotels, which is wood and fire, and this year is scheduled earth and metal later in the year, all in these really nicely designed books from Goats and Compasses. So I'm going to read just a little bit from wood, which is entitled Two Burned Hotels. And the poem begins with a epigraph from Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio. Carlo Collodi, who wrote the original Pinocchio, and the epigraph reads as such: Once upon a time there was a king, my little readers will say at once. No, children, you're wrong. Once upon a time there was a piece of wood. Every single letter of the alphabet has been a struggle for me, for whom there is nothing transparent. This opaque struggle holds within itself a surprising balm. I split down the middle, material in the hands of the god. Foliage plus fauna's firewood, a second life that is drawn from the living magma. The splitting maw tenderly opens the round. The grain of the voice, the grain of the wood. Soft interior that splits so easily, the more fiercely one is tender, and releases a perfume from the interior. Timber is complex and full of grief. Light fell on the particulars, and the light itself was particular. It lingered there a few moments on the particulars, wood, water, dust, before trailing off, not into darkness, but some more reserved ambiance of the general and the shadowed. Light fell on the particulars, and the light itself was particular to each emptiness. Special spacing of a special grove. To freely acknowledge one's dependence on ghosts that we visit nightly, some released from the bodies of people, others from the bodies of trees. One listens for a sound emanating from this world, for a sound emanating from the other. In the ravine of the one thing is the pinnacle of another. One asks one's questions with brimming heart, words no longer abstractions, wood no longer only a material. While amidst dense trees, there is a once volcanic crater filled with water, as at a water's deepest source, a lake one returns to the image of over a lifetime. This lake is surrounded by elms and firs, but also by the smoking embers of a burned hotel. In fact, of two burned hotels, the embers and ash long since dispersed, the hotels as much rumors as structures, though you can still see each foundation. At the edge of the ruins, one evokes people from the old world, all long gone, the grouchy staff, all long gone, families that sojourn there, all long gone, reception, all long gone. The will to make oneself completely free, one subscribed to as a teenager and then forgot about, though the thought remained subconsciously, suddenly to realize that for a moment is kind of true, for better or for worse. Ego falls through emptiness, a pebble plunging in a dark abyss, just as the individual dies into a general principle. If uncalled by the actual, the poem sinks into tautology. Called, the poem is going elsewhere, even as it falls. Elsewhere keeps rising to the top. The sounds of a raven and a fir, which isn't yet to say anything, as depending on the raven's mood. Language won't let you see it, but the moon is still visible in the morning. Early light, ecstatic, breaks over the rifle range. I think I'll read a few sections from the second part of the book, entitled Masses of Black and White, which is the fire section, and begins with an epigraph from Rumi, translated by Halaliza Ghaffari, who the last time I was asked to curate something at Brooklyn Rail, it was on Hala's translation, new translations of Rumi, and her formulation of it is fire and thickets of tangled thought. The object and its outer vibration is the object and its outer vibration. The object and its outer vibration is the object and its outer vibration, and also kindling for the inner life elicited by the object. The object and its outer vibration, the object and its outer vibration, the inner life with all its kindling, the inner vibration, the object and its outer vibration, the profound ambiguity of a certain summons, the profound ambiguity of a certain summons. Inner vibration elicited by the object. Moss-covered thickets, soggy limbs underneath. The moss, those limbs, their refusal to burn, their refusal of all fire, future kindling, collecting in this circumstance. The object and its outer vibration. A being that stands apart from sky and earth, even as it is indistinguishable from both. The inner life that is kindled by an outer vibration, and the physical fire at work that, if respected, will be respectful. The object as its outer vibration, the inner life as kindling, the senses that receive the vibration at the proper distance, the fire at the proper distance, fire at the proper distance. Also, there is the light pouring down in sheets from the sun's fusion, the sphinx of the seasons, preparing to pose a dazzling question at the proper distance, at the proper time, when one is permeable. Moss-covered wood so wet it refuses the fire, saving itself for future kindling. And then lastly, Who knows what color will beckon next? Vibrations elicited by objects, and one never knows which book will be the guide. It might be blue. It might be a book of interviews with Francis Bacon. Now, at long last, the fire is no longer hell-haunted. Not in its innermost becoming, not in its outer being. Wounded, sacred, a fire that can never be put out, free from all punishment, oblivious to all retardants. After the excitement that made of stones organisms, there was a chill that made the stones seem dead, but that was an illusion. They are organisms, saving themselves for later, like senile wood. Wounded, sacred, a fire that can never be put out. A blizzard of fire in the high country, a downpour of fire in town, a smokeless fire from which the jinn are born, somewhere out there in the imaginary of the desert. Who knows which book will be the guide? What color will beckon? The fire here no longer hell-haunted. A fire in which past lives flicker. Intact inner worlds are released by the action of the heat. Waves, vibrations. The kinetic purpose of the fire at just the right distance is contained in the fruit, in the freshness of its juice. Fire at a distance, at just the right distance, wounded, sacred, born from the reverie of flames, making our peace with the flames. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. And thanks again for putting this together today. Our next reader is going to be Tyrone Williams. Tyrone is the David Gray Chair of Poetry and Letters at SUNY Buffalo, which is also where I went to college, so now I might have to re-enroll since you're teaching there, Tyrone. He is the author of several chapbooks and 7 books of poetry, including CC, On Spec, The Hero Project of the Century, Adventures of Pi, Howl, As Is, Wash Park with Pat Clifford, and Stilettos in a Rifle Range, which was published just last year by Wayne State University Press. A limited edition art project, Trompe l'oeil, was published by Hostile Books in 2017. He and Jeannie Hooving edited an anthology of critical essays called Inciting Poetics, which was published in 2019 by the University of New Mexico Press. Please welcome Tyrone to the Rail Reading.
Thanks, Anson. Thanks, Leonard, for inviting me to join. I'm going to read most of the poems from Stilettos in a Rifle Range, and this will be the Stilettos part. And then I'll conclude with the with 2 poems from the book I did with Pat Clifford, and that'll be the Rifle Range part of the reading, as it were. Like something was about to start. It's a line from Jean Harlow from Bombshell. The way the ass of the world, abacus absent ball bearings, sumptuous in the any of cup, squeezy, squeaky, high D, a lit style, points tit for tat. How ML Beavers milk honey, neither Jip nor Jude, comb, kinks, cock, hide, Hattie Mac walk the sheep, a doodle, red dust rag, dogs, sand, TGIF, sheep, talkies, silence, butt for the butt, 2 force-fed for 2-piece bikini atoll, glass of leave equals 2 fingers. A blind of thumbs. Her hands were not hers to hand out, much less to herself, least of all to the lower case of a third back, unarched, if anything, the opposite, however offhandedly, a first person, singular, if not single, leaning back into her, my, if not mine, hand, behind the back legs of a chair, or 2, hands crossed hands set at best to clap, worst, pat, however past the point of clasp, near impasa, no, opposable backs. She, her. That disturbance outside. Exegetes cum peeping toms, stumbling through the flower beds. Won't raise the blinds, cry uncle. Pimp the pronouns standing guard on either side of this sentence prison cell, sanctuary, confessional box, where Turing hyphens and double bars gossip in one eve and out the other. Drop earmarked for a proper nounery. The Venice virus. And an envelope slipped into the side pocket, flanked by the legal pad handler of a frontispiece leather bound, like file folder at the back of a cabinet frame by the furniture of folding work into area in a house, in a city, a world, etc. Absolute universe. A hand severed from its wrists as cleanly as the nothing between it and other hands, remains in it as remains of a fleeting grasp. Heavenly asteroid inflated into an envoy, cornered stamp. In an envelope, rough salt, left over from your tongue, absorbs the last drops of moisture from the cut roses enclosed. An avocado yellow piece of cheap string promoted to crinkled sash, poised to distribute effective orders. Holds a piece of cardboard folded into a card down, if not downsize. The card lunging forth like a wild Cantonese from a throat concealed by a Mandarin mouth. Child, in effect, an envelope of tropes, flashcard the occult. I'm going to finish with the two opening paragraphs from Wash Park, a book I wrote with a colleague of mine, Pat Clifford. And this is, if you will, the rifle range, or part of it. Turquoise shirts. Two men met in the over the Rhine neighborhood of Cincinnati, both wearing turquoise shirts. One was riding a bike, the other was walking. At this stage, neither were material depositories of exchange value, nor things of air. Cracks frame some.
Tyrone, you accidentally touched your mute button. You got muted about 3 lines back.
Oh, sorry. Am I back?
You are.
Cracks frame cement slabs, 3 square mills, the indices of ordinary wear and tear, regular sold at cost, and irregular is practically given away at a loss. They accept downplay in trade belonging to both the example and the studio. Pedalist pedestrian coming and going by appointment. Between them, something hidden from public scrutiny was exchanged subject to speculation, precisely unspectacular. Authorities have confirmed the reports. 4 unidentified margins called left to seen, last unseen in circulation. Their relationship is said to have passed away. spelled out quietly by the generous population of a mixed neighborhood abstracted from mixed identities in lieu of proper names or common property. A passion for the decrepit in lieu of propriety. A dance of millions. A man with a gray shirt, jeans, and a backpack walked north on Elm Street. A man with a blue shirt and khaki pants waved at the metro bus at 7:32 p.m. Account every kind of labor to be unskilled. Simple labor. By this, we do more than save ourselves the trouble of ex-lovers. Between the devoted, there is no discernment of natural and value forms. Ditto for the others, well-being, black and blue and gray. Yes, walking to see Iron Maiden, so many angels streaming into their concrete instilled abstractions, shaped like one pen. Sitting or lying, it is not so easy to ask. Markets induce panic, confidence, yet arise not. Canceled assumptions distance themselves from them. And no doubt for expensive offices which spread like pine. Some yearn, wasted on the other. Invisible doorsteps serve as certain kinds of shoes borne by certain kinds of feet. No free verses. Thanks.
Thank you, Tyrone. Thanks so much for joining us today. Our final reader is going to be Zhang Er, poet, translator, and opera librettist, born in Beijing, author of 7 collections of poetry in Chinese, most recently Sea Volts and Bullets Twirl. Her selected poems were published in 3 English translation collections from Zephyr Press, titles First Mountain, So Translating Rivers and Cities, and Verses on Bird. She co-edited the translation of Another Kind of Nation, an anthology of contemporary Chinese poetry from Talisman House, and The Art of Women in Contemporary China, Both Sides Now, published by Cambridge Scholars publisher. She also wrote the opera libretti Moon in the Mirror and Fiery Jade, Cai Yan. Tacoma Method, a new opera, is scheduled to premiere in March 2023. She currently lives in the Pacific Northwest among the trees. Please welcome Zhang Er to the Rail Reading Series.
Thank you, Ansem, for inviting me. And from the rainy Seattle, Olympia region, Pacific Northwest, I will start my reading with one little poem. It's called Raindrop. This poem has been written very early in my poetry career, many years before. And when this was translated by Leonard Schwartz, it's a part of the relationship I have to declare here of the poetry of Leonard Schwartz. So the Raindrop. By the way, my friend Yu Xian is from Peru, joined us through Zoom, and she is from Taiwan originally, and now she's traveling in Peru. Welcome, Yu Xian. 雨滴，迎着风走不难。 只要克服阻力，顺着风行也不难，只需依从惯性。雨滴悬置空间，往复不已。风从6面吹来，风从6面吹来，伞折了筋骨，变作雨的旗。
This is from So Translating Rivers and Cities by Zhang Er, and the poem is entitled A Raindrop. It's not difficult to go against the wind, just overcome the resistance. It's not difficult to go with the wind either, merely obey inertia. A raindrop suspended in space winds back and forth. The winds come from 6 directions. Winds come from 6 directions. the fractured bones of an umbrella become a flag, stark banner of the rain.
Thank you, Leonard. The next poem is written in a monastery in central China. So it feels worlds away since I haven't been to China for over 3 years because of the pandemic and because many other reasons. So, but it's in preparing for this reading, I'm just looking at it, feels like so precious. They still have a place like that recorded in poem, in language, even though there's no way to access it except through this poem. I think Leonard and I will read stanza by stanza for this poem, and it's relatively long. Shall we read the English first or the Chinese first? Anybody has opinions, suggestions?
That's not a question for me, right? It's a question for others, for everyone. Any
Right.
preference out there? Thumbs up if you prefer English. Thumbs down if you prefer. Thumbs up if you prefer English first. Joey? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see anyone in the chat room. I just saw Mr. Seamus say English first, thumbs up. Okay.
Okay.
So Fangbui also the Brooklyn Rails editor-in-chief, so we must then do the English first. So I will do the English first. And this poem is entitled Secret Words. You book the same, and I want to say the translation is by Zhang Er with Joseph Donahue, the poet Joseph Donahue. They worked on the translation 10 years. I really should not be usurping credit for translation here. You book the same room as if you'd planned it, as if the room were a theater for you to show me some big dream. We have been through way too much together, countless events, engraved in our bones and hearts. We can't feel peaceful or even talk to each other. Drink tea, break open seeds, eat peach, watermelon, talk about life, earlier ones, the current one, the future one, which is also the secret words of a poem, of a puzzle, a maze. You hold in your hand my answer, the one way out. Therefore, we are thrown into companionship on the road. Climb aboard, climb the mountain, cast off the boat. When sharing a cabin, we only tell stories, write poetry, and draw sketches. Count your blessings, count my blessings, with me, with you all. Share the warmth of indoors, the opportunities that require not just the 100 years of fate that lead to marriage. You want more? How about flowers, perfume, water, incense, food, lights, gifts to the Buddha?
密语，同定一个房间，就仿佛预制一场大梦，一起经历了那么多刻骨铭心，到了却无法像这样安静的倾心谈话，喝茶，嗑瓜子儿，吃桃，吃西瓜，说说生活，前世、今世、来世，也就是诗里的密语、谜语，你手里攥着我的谜底，因此我们是同行者。上车，上山，上船，同居一室，一舱一厢的时候，只讲故事，写诗，还能画几笔。Count your blessings, count my blessings. 和你们分享内史的感觉，良机绝不止100年的缘分，还要更多。花、涂香、水、烧香、饭食、灯明。
You can't get enough of my white, smooth shoulder, the whole top half of a woman's body, where the last traces of sexiness can still be seen. Other fresh flowers drift downwards, longing to meet the cool seagulls and hunting dogs, but here, alas, they turn into crows, ducks, pheasants, trees, draft beer of the southern plateau, and a big vegetable stew. Off-color jokes walk out of the cool shades of the purple bamboo pavilion. They pounce on endangered poplar leaves the size of a palm. We've known each other 10 years, 100 years, quite a while.
布施，看不厌白肥的肩膀，女人青春常驻的上半身，其他鲜花向下，向往清凉的海鸥和猎狗。这里盛产乌鸦、水鸭、山鸡、丛林、南台生皮和大烩菜。黄色校花从紫竹院的阴凉里走出来，落满濒危的杨树叶，巴掌大。我们相识10年、100年，很久了。
You follow the teachings, yet still can't distinguish those wildflowers in your heart, their names, their looks, even when they appear as photos in the evening paper. Curve your arms to form an O. Too perfect. A flower in the mirror, a moon in the water, a blurred emptiness, a lighted trap where the turnip can't be pulled out. Yet even this dream has a night when it's finally done. For example, tonight, you say, I love you. Do you believe it or not? Or is this just for you a poetic tongue twister? Roundness is not necessarily fulfillment, but a slippery smoothness of perfumed body cream, not necessarily a protective circle. For example, this wedding band, this hamster wheel of iron wire, this exercise for its spirit.
持戒也辨不出你心头那些个野花，名称和模样，以及小报头条相片为准。手臂挽成一个 O， 无刺脸的镜中花、水中月，眉目不清的虚空，或拔不出萝卜的陷阱。可是梦也有完成的夜晚，比如今夜。你说，我说我爱你，你信不信？诗是绕口令，圆不是圆满，是圆滑，持戒相高，护身的圆环，还干脆就是这个结婚戒指，节制。小仓鼠踩铁丝轮，锻炼精神。
This humiliating mix of water and mess. Cleaved, bloody, all have to die. The mountain sees you standing next to me, doing your thing. An image boils in my heart. Does she wear a bra? Is this soul bearing or porn? Why do the strings of rain incline to you? This bloody mess is cut open for you to see, while she still sits on the opposite bed, watches me, lights a cigarette. I would prefer not to believe such an ending. Raindrops wrinkle the water. Ugly water slowly opens its mouth.
人乳、水、雪呼啦啦长在一起，劈开都得死。山看着你站在我身旁，做自己的事儿。点缀的水花烙上胸脯，他戴没戴乳罩？如此算不算自白 ？Oh prom， 雨丝的游戏为什么如此依恋你？雪呼啦啦抛出来，你看，他仍坐在对面的床上看着我，点燃一支烟，不相信这样一种结局。雨点在水面上难看的起皱，缓缓张大嘴。
Progress lights a stick of incense. Progress lights a stick of incense. Some water, some green cleansing, blooms at the waistline, a spice pocket, a stone staircase, a robe, white pants. Buddhist nuns hand in hand walk a long way. They don't beg for coins or cry. They hold hands through the noisy town. The unknown go to another's home. There is no alternate edition. The scrolls have closed their door. Pour out these waters, give voice. No line is meaningless. Gather up the liberated depth and density of this summer.
精进点起一支香，一些水，一些绿，开在腰眼上的清洁，香带、石阶、长衫、宽裤，小姐妹手挽手，走了很远的路，不见钱币，也不再哭泣，何尝抓起满城的嘈杂，不认识的回到了别人的家，没有另外版本。经卷关门，铺展这些带声音的水，一行也不空，堆出夏天释放的生命。
Meditate in the coolness. Impenetrable long sleeves, prayer beads, life and death flow through all. Sitting with your legs folded up is like spinning the web of desire, the cool pavilion at the waist of the hill. Wind blows, sweat stops. The lower half of the body feels cold. You would like to walk to the very edge, climb to the mountaintop, examine this rough and severe, endlessly turning wheel. Want to eat something? A banana? Professional smile of a photographer. The grammar of the sentence cleverly controls the intensity of emotions. Sensitivity trembles, has doe ears, pastel colored at the root. A grove of trees waits 100 years, 1,000 years, patiently. The grove of trees watches a butterfly in the wind. A mouthful to the east, a mouthful to the west, alert to both beauty and nutrition. The butterfly is up, flies down. It's suddenly reborn in the hand of a poplar branch.
清凉禅定，参不透念珠的长袖口，从而流转生死。盘坐如盘丝，半山腰的凉亭，风吹汗止，下半段有点凉。你擅走极端，非要爬上山顶，寻理这又粗又硬，找不到停顿的转机。吃点东西吧，香蕉。摄影家职业的微笑，句法灵巧的调配激情的周期，敏感抖动入耳。浅如素色，击住小树林等在那里，100年、1000年，耐心注视风行的蝴蝶，东一口西一口，美容滋养，飞上飞下，忽然转生一只细嫩的羊之手。
Last section. Say this is wisdom, though not as sound as, say, the naive white of a pagoda shaded by floating clouds. Try not to blur the solemn decor and the principle of the pearl beads. Try not to pull your clothes off in erotic abandon. Don't force yourself to step off the lion or the lotus seat. This cannot yet be construed as our virtue. True reason is a tangle of vague teachings. We talk because it is difficult to talk. Eternal light of a Buddhist lamp. Celebrated banners high above. Only when the head is reverentially covered will dreams dare to design an end to silent burning. Outside the door, a sky full of stars. Hear the indigo blue secret words.
说智慧，不如说白塔天真的本色为浮云所掩，不想混淆罂粟庄严的原则。揭开腰间长短重衫，或逼你胯下狮子莲花座，却还不算我们的功德。真题纠缠俗题，难谈才谈。佛灯长明，欢门高悬。被子蒙头，梦才敢设计寂静燃烧的结尾。门外满天星星，请听蓝盈莹的悄悄话。Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Zhang. And thanks everybody. Thank you, Leonard and Fatemeh and Tyrone. And this is a terrific reading. Leonard, do you want to
Sure, we talk
sure,
because it is
go ahead.
okay. I do recall in the past there was time for conversation some conversation at the end of the reading. If there are any questions, I think you could gain access to the mic, or Chloe or Eleanor or Anselm or could turn on your mic if you do have a question or comment. They're always welcome. We talk because it is difficult to talk, was how Zhang Er and Joseph Donahue formulated it there at the end. And so it does seem to me conversation is important. Are there any questions or comments? Or I guess I would just say, since it was a trilingual reading, English, Farsi, English, Persian, and Chinese, there's a kind of Fatemeh, Zhang Er, have you ever done a reading before that was both Chinese and Persian together?
First time. Thank you
First time.
for organizing it.
Fatemeh?
I've done bilingual readings actually. Yes, I'm Persian and English, but not. Last time I read along a Chinese poet was in Berlin International Poetry Festival, which was in 2019. So it's, thank you for putting this together.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think it makes a huge difference to hear the words and the performance of the poem in the original to get the feeling of it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that it's so important to hear the sound of the original. Even if we don't know the language, we get a sensual sense of it. Chloe, is anyone saying they want to ask a question or say anything in response?
I don't think so. If any of you have a question, feel free to raise your hand and I'll give you the chance to unmute.
Riva Villa puts in a nice comment there. Thank you. Riva is a very interesting poet who writes in Spanish and in English. Anything you'd want to say, Riva?
Everyone's just saying thank you. Nobody's got any nobody's got any question marks at the end of their sentences. So maybe we'll just call it a reading and throw the mics open and let everybody say hello and head off.
Okay. Very good.
Can we do that? Can we unmute everybody?
Yeah, I think everybody.
You have a tradition at the Brooklyn Rally of everyone just saying hello all at once, right?
Hello,
Hello and goodbye.
hello, and
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hello and
Leonard.
goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I must be going. Right. That's how
Yes. Nice to see you again, Leonard.